Well everyone, Todd W. No two ways about it, the Oblivion Remaster Shadow Drop, I think, has worked as a plan. The numbers are great, there's a lot to dive into with it, but it's not all I've got to talk about today. Leaked documents show what is coming next. Actual development plans for their properties. There is serious modding potential in this remake. The actual architecture of the remake is pretty damn impactful to what you'll be playing and what will be coming next. And Oblivion tells us something important about games themselves, about what matters, what's good, what's appealing. But to begin, I think we should compare numbers with Bethesda Game Studios' last big release, Starfield. Both of these launched on Game Pass, including PC, both launched on Steam, and that's where it gets interesting. Starfield opened after a massive marketing campaign to advanced access on Friday to 234k players. 9 days later, it peaked at 330k. Oblivion then opened on a Tuesday to 182k peak players in Steam. A day later, it peaked at 190, and all of this is before, of course, the weekend numbers come in, and it's often in the weekend where those rise. But for the bottom line, this will matter a lot for Microsoft, there's another huge difference. PS5. Oblivion has been sitting at rank 1 on PS5 all week. It's got a rating of 4.89 out of 5 in the store from 9.6k reviews. That is a huge stack of far higher than normal margin cash, because there's no way in hell that this project cost anything near as much as, say, Starfield from start to finish. And if you ask me why this has all been so successful, I think there's an obvious reason. If you're below a certain age, Oblivion is in a way an underappreciated gem. Now obviously it is, and at the time was, mainstream, but Skyrim's success was vast. And what Skyrim did is it expanded the Elder Scrolls audience, just like Oblivion did following Morrowind. And just like the Morrowind players who decried Oblivion for being horrible streamlining, us Oblivion players then looked at Skyrim and thought, oh dear, that's a step back, they've really watered it down. Of course, Skyrim is still a legendary game, but I'd say it absolutely was missing something. But there's a problem with Oblivion as it had existed. Jank. Some jank is actually too much jank for people, and some of the visuals will not work for a modern audience used to a modern presentation. And as the levels of hype for Sky Oblivion show, there was always latent potential and interest there, including potential for the mother of all dramas. I think had they announced this well before, a lot of people would have thought, oh dear, is this going to be basically their Warcraft 3 Reforged? But shockingly, that didn't happen, and that means that Oblivion's best bits are shining. On this channel, we talk about business, we talk about behavior, and basically psychology impacts all of that. Oblivion was undersold. That is a smart thing that they did. And when I say that, I mean, this is a remaster, right? But it feels like a remake, and it's literally called Remaster. That's even though, in Bethesda's very own words, quote, we never wanted to remake it, but remaster it, where the old game was there as you remember playing it, but seen through today's technology. And this is masterful expectation setting, because whenever I hear that a game is getting a HD remaster, I think of the Assassin's Creed Ezio collection, right? I think of quickly turned around things to get some money. And when I hear remake, I think of Resi 4. And by Resi 4 standards, this is in no way a remake, but by how most people have very low expectations of a remaster these days, it may as well be a remake, because visuals actually matter, generally speaking, and for a game like this, they specifically matter. And unlike the busted relighting of those Assassin's Creed projects, here, they absolutely nailed it. Here's how they nailed it. Here's how it actually works. This bit matters. This is a co-production between Bethesda Game Studios and Virtuos Paris. Basically, the latter, Virtuos, are a huge Singapore-based dev group. They've got people all over the world, like thousands of staff, and they seemingly have a lot of Unreal Engine 5 experience. As an example, they are working on the Metal Gear Solid 3 remake. And what we have here, effectively, right, is Oblivion rammed into Unreal Engine 5. Now, the actual game bit is still all Creation Engine, just it's living basically within Unreal Engine 5. And that might seem a little bit weird. Game engines are often talked about as if they're some sort of crazy monolith. Well, no, in reality, they are sets of tools and technologies. Here, they've got their bits to work. And what that means is we're getting the Unreal Engine 5 benefits. world-class rendering and visual performance, save perhaps the screen space reflection bug and some iffy DLSS performance over on PC. But when you take a look at the visual presentation, you immediately see the UE5 benefits you get. Just look at the assets. They're almost certainly mega scans. Certainly looks like that when you look at those trees, because man, they're crispy. And to borrow a Todd Howardism, it all just works. This is what UE5 is really built for. Now, you throw onto that the god-tier lighting and things you get from UE5, and you do get a stunning comparison. What you're literally going from is old-school forward rendering without loads of different visual techniques that now exist. You're going from that to modern state-of-the-art. That's how something that literally is a remaster feels like a remake, especially because it's an open-world exploration-based game. That's actually somewhere where the visuals do quite matter, and they have nailed that. But then there's quality of life. Sprinting! A leveling system not designed by a demon and meth. Quite the change from the last leveling system. And self-awareness. They respected the good jank. Things that they could have fixed have purposefully not been fixed because they know people love them. As someone who grew up in Oblivion and fell out of love with the Elder Scrolls franchise with Skyrim, didn't care much for Fallout and bounced it off Starfield, this has done the impossible. This has recaptured how Oblivion actually feels in my imagination. The best thing that a remake or remaster can do is bring back that childlike feeling. It's so rare, and they've actually only went and bloody well done it. So congratulations, that's the highest bar. However, I think for Mr. Howard, it is only the beginning. Make no mistake, this is all about nostalgia. Bethesda know that they are not going to release Elder Scrolls 6 anytime soon. They also know that yet another Skyrim re-release would not cut through. We would all roll our eyes if they just announced that. But I would put money on it happening, and I think Oblivion makes it more likely. If you had presented me with Skyrim Remaster as a pitch last week, I would have rolled my eyes. I would have thought, oh wow, what, is this going to be the Skyrim Specialer Edition? Don't care, because it would just be effectively the same thing. Now though, I'd actually be tempted. Bethesda have done something smart here. They know that seeing is believing. So in doing Oblivion first, they earn believability that will create Skyrim Remaster demand. And that's because this new UE5 pipeline with Creation Engine has actually worked in the visuals. If it was just the same old thing, but, you know, higher res, and it's a bit more efficient, no one would care. But in this, they created demand. And that's relevant because why speculate and tease when I can show you proof? What if I told you that this leaked years ago, along with a host of other Bethesda games? Why tell? I can just show you the document. Here it is. So, this went public as part of the Microsoft versus FTC trial. And in it, we see Oblivion Remaster targeted for the end of fiscal year 2022. That would basically be around March 2022. So, yeah, they're only 3 and a bit years late, but there's an obvious reason. That document is actually from before COVID, before the acquisition, before Starfield, right? And what matters most today is in the same doc, we can see Fallout 3 Remaster being planned for the end of fiscal 24, along with The Elder Scrolls 6. Now, spoiler alert, neither of those things have happened in the real timeline, but I think they're absolutely real plans. So many things in this leak have actually came to pass, and it's not like this is a random slide that somebody posted on 4chan. No, this is from a court case. This is actually a real document. And looking at the actual dates and the slippage, I'm comfortable applying the average delay to Fallout 3 Remaster, and I believe that will probably launch within the next 2 years. I do not expect similar for The Elder Scrolls 6. We know that it officially entered production a month after Starfield launched, but I've got to imagine that Starfield-related firefighting held the team back quite a bit, and we know that by March 2024, Todd said that it was in early production. So yeah, I think it will be 3 years, maybe 4. As for Fallout Remaster, well, that, especially with the success of the TV show, would almost certainly succeed in this environment. The question then is, would Skyrim follow? Well, for me, I think it's an absolute yes, if you sort of understand that it would be in a few years, where a lot of things would have moved on. The only question is whether it would happen before The Elder Scrolls 6 or after The Elder Scrolls 6. And if you think that that's far-fetched speculation, well, get a load of this. There's a trend for user-generated content, and I think there's a good reason why they have done this in such a way to make it very moddable. Mods aren't only culturally important, they're not just fun, they're also big goddamn business even when they are free, because they keep people playing your game. And as we covered in this video, that's powerful. As an example, Baldur's Gate 3. But for all of these companies, the real promised land is one of paid user-generated content. That's where they get to sell more and more and more video game without needing legions of pesky wage and benefit loving developers. This is the bedrock of Microsoft's Minecraft business model. It's something Bethesda already does with their in-game mod stores. Every modern Bethesda title has one. You've got Skyrim Special Edition, Fallout 4, and Starfield, all with the Creation Club. And the thing is, those Creation Clubs ain't dead. Even today, Skyrim is getting torrents of content, including paid, verified creator stuff monthly. The stuff's like releasing, by the day. It doesn't make headlines because it's not exactly newsworthy, but for Bethesda, that's a little digital economy they've got going on Skyrim, an old game. Do you know what they didn't have for Oblivion? They didn't have that. They didn't have a Creation Club. And in fairness, they don't have one in Oblivion Remastered right now, but I think it's a foregone conclusion. That's because even though this has got all that fancy Unreal Engine 5 presentation, the core game is moddable, very moddable. Literally, you can open it with existing mod tools. Now, Creation Club came to Starfield a year after launch. If I were you, I would expect the same thing here, because from their perspective, it would be mad to pass up such a perfect playing of their hands. As much as their releases can be big, Bethesda is a company that lives by its backlog potential, right? So if they can have, as an example, Fallout Remaster with Creation Club, Oblivion Remaster with Creation Club, then that is 2 more ongoing lines of business. Obviously, they're going to do that. But for the final big point of this video, let's go away from business. Let's talk about this as a video game and how Mike Ybarra of Blizzard fame is wrong. As much as Mike tried to sell himself as the gamer-in-chief of Blizzard, man, he really does have some bangers on Twitter, including this one, which, look, I mean, I can't understand it. It's basically being skeptical that a, old boomer game that's not as smooth as a new game could struggle in today's market. And I kind of understand why you would think that. But I think it is essentially wrong, and I think there's a reason why Oblivion is, in a way, such a perfect play. So, overall, right? Thinking about when Oblivion was made, it's a big enough game to be very, very impressive. However, that's back when team sizes were smaller than they are today. Think about, the people who, say, left the Starfield team and just talked about how they no longer really liked that creative environment, as opposed to Skyrim. Well, Oblivion is of a time where there's handmade charm to everything because, quite literally, there were fewer people building things. Another thing Oblivion does, far better than Skyrim, is have a less prescriptive player fantasy and a less prescriptive world. Skyrim very much is what it is, but Oblivion, man, it is one, pretty damn, diverse motherfucker in terms of content. You've got all of the different cultures and all the different, towns and cities. I think more so than you get in Skyrim. Some of that is natural to the setting, in the Elder Scrolls, continents and stuff. But I just think that there's something about Cyrodiil that really works for open-ended player fantasy. I know a lot of the more hardcore people, they actually looked at Dragonborn and sort of thought, I wish that was an option. I wish this game wasn't designed around me being the Dragonborn. And obviously you are, a bit of a fated hero character in Oblivion as well. It's just a lot lighter touch. And of course, a lot of games like this are doing well. I think there's a lot of connective tissue between this and popular games like, say, Kingdom Come 2. Now, to Mike Ybarra's point, I think what shows it the best is combat sucks in this game. And it does, right? I make no bones about it. Oblivion's combat model is kind of ass, at least by any sort of modern game design critique standard, and certainly back in the day, we didn't think it was a particularly fun combat system either. But you know what it is? It's very simple, it's hard to get wrong, and while it's not great, it doesn't ruin the experience. It's not what people come to this game for. What matters is the soul of what made Oblivion special is intact. And part of that soul is a unique sense of adventure. I say unique because this was really the birth of so much of modern AAA gaming. Hello, horse armor, but this was them moving from a fundamentally older sort of visual style technologies with Morrowind and into something that was genuinely quite mind-blowing. Now, that meant that they made a lot of creative decisions about how they put this world together. That's what made it so successful in 2006. Those fundamental strengths still exist. and the UE5 glow up just magnifies them. Then finally, there's a huge, huge social factor. A lot of people in games, media, etc., they wonder, why does games marketing not work these days? How do we get people to talk about our game? Here's a perfect example. God, I'm 30. Whatever. Boomers like me get to feel validated that the game of our childhood looks this damn good and is being well received. That means we get to evangelize the game that we love now that it's accessible, approachable, modern tech, all that stuff. New players then finally with this get an opportunity to act on what they had heard whispered to them over the years, but did not have the impetus to check out. Those things have worked together perfectly. Now you might wonder, what about Sky Oblivion? The good news is Bethesda's not shutting it down. I think Bethesda like those guys. Bethesda sent them all free copies of this game. So basically it's going to press on. It's two different ways of achieving a similar aim. And who knows, maybe we will be able to play Sky Oblivion in Skyrim Remastered. That'll probably happen. And best of all, for the corporate interests involved, they get to see all of those glorious Game Pass players, all of those PS5 purchasers, and then they get to think, oh, what if we brought the Creation Club to this? We'd get a lot of money. I think they would. Honestly, if I was advising them in business matters, I'd say they probably should. Now, this talk about the mods being big business and UGC and all that, do you want to actually know what's going on? Because if you do, watch this video next. We did a full goddamn report on it.